You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. Underwear drawers are like the Wild West. You never know what you're going to pull out or what shape it's in. So upgrade your collection with the buttery soft comfort of MeUndies. MeUndies' signature fabric is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. Plus, it's breathable and oh so comfy, making it ideal for all-day wear. Get 20% off your first order, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Spotify with code SPOTIFY. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify, code SPOTIFY.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
Warning, this show is for adults, produced by semi-adults. So the language is sometimes strong and offensive.
I don't know what I said.
Welcome to We Are Libertarians, where our goal is to help you sound smarter while talking to your friends. We examine current events from a libertarian perspective while treating modern politics with all of the irreverence it deserves.
There has been lie after lie.
We toss out the screaming heads, put people before political parties, and give context to the news to make you think. Now, here's our host, a 15-year veteran of politics and media, Chris Spangle.
All right, welcome to We Are Libertarians. We are live in the brand new podcast studio that I am building. I think I'm going to call it Podcasting and Platform Studio, but I haven't decided on a name yet. It's been a 3-month odyssey to build this space. What you can't see is the giant 12 by 6 foot moss wall for soundproofing, and there's all kinds of equipment and junk. What is Danny Lundy, Harry Price, walls, and that's kind of it. But Harry, this is the podcast studio that I'm building for my podcast business.
Yep.
If you're a listener and you don't know, I edit podcasts, I do production of podcasts, I help people launch podcasts. Like, I have a full side business that does all kinds of services for podcasting, and we needed a space, and you wouldn't give me a key to your house, so I had to go out and build a podcast studio.
Yeah.
For shame.
I didn't want to give him a key for several of the reasons that you see around us.
Oh, really? What?
The fire hazard extension cords that he has around here, several of them daisy chains, no fused, very dangerous.
Not to mention the shady characters he has on the show on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, no, the power is probably an issue, but we're not going to tell anybody that.
It is not the fire code. My mute button's missing. Okay, I just want to point that out. I don't have my mute
There is
button.
no mute button, no.
Yeah, I'm going to have to just cough right into the microphone now.
That is a good suggestion. We're doing a podcast. We haven't done We Are Libertarians in a while, so we definitely wanted to get an episode in and have a conversation. It's 420.
Yep.
So, of course, the Libertarian Party of Indiana has a party right outside the door, so that's why you might hear some mingling. So we're going to pull a couple people in, and I needed basically a test subject, so Harry volunteered to drive all the way here. This brand new studio with thousands of dollars of equipment. And Harry's, I don't want to go record there. It's a little far for me. Can we keep doing it at the Doolittle Studios?
It's a little far.
So to be clear, you don't want to do it in your house, but you also don't want to do it here because that's too far.
This one's too far, but the house is the $250,000 recording studio that we have. Amazing place. Awesome. I'm willing to drive there because it's 15 minutes further, okay?
This is 15 minutes further.
I feel like you're being a little... Is he that big of a star? Like, is he...
He's a
Does he
star.
only get green
I'm a big
M&Ms?
deal.
And
He's
like,
a star.
I know you're a big deal. I don't understand the podcast
but
world. I'm just asking.
Danny, I could use the pub. We could record out of here. It was built for conversations like this. This is the summation of a dream that I've had for 10 years.
I really love the climbing wall, too. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that
that's
was for
really great.
soundproofing. I thought you were just supposed to grab the moss and see if you could reach the top.
Yeah, as Luke Lomax said, this is like a long way from the studio that you had in your kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, and also doing the shows here helps me promote it on live streaming so people can see that there's a podcast studio in Indianapolis
in
that
your
they can
kitchens,
rent.
you can't throw one of these chairs.
And Harry wants to do it at his house because it's 15 minutes closer to him.
Correct. Can we also admit that I want longtime listeners know for the longest time that I have said that Spangle should have moved it from his kitchen and just used his bedroom, and he kept saying it wouldn't fit. It would fit. It would have fit.
It would have fit.
And it'd be
Clearly, you
nice.
did not get that joke.
It would have, but it just would have meant you had various suggestions when we were in the apartment, like drywall up the kitchen.
Yeah. I have best suggestions.
Yeah. Like I had a bedroom. I had a 1-bedroom apartment, and he's moved the studio into the bedroom and put your bed in the dining area. Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, see, because if it was in there, his bedroom had great soundproofing that he never really used. But then he would have that nice space there. It would be great.
This is actually smaller than the bedroom. This is probably about 3/4 of the size of the bedroom, maybe half.
Yeah.
So you were probably right.
See?
Yeah. The angles in here aren't totally ideal. It's good enough for sure. I need a couple more cameras.
Yeah, a couple more cameras in here.
John, come on in. John, it's okay.
Yeah.
People are wandering up to peek in the studio.
Actually, this is a backdrop.
This
So
brick
that's
brick
the brick is
wall.
pretty cool.
Brick is pretty
Yeah,
nice.
check out the YouTube. It's on the We Are Libertarians YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. This brick wall, this is when I walked in the space as they were giving me a tour, because I have a podcast for podcasters called Podcasting and Platforms. And every month I host a podcast meetup and then a live podcast for podcasters here in Indiana. And when she was showing me the space, I walked in and I looked at this brick wall and I was like, this would be a great podcast studio. Because it's long, you have some space in here. This brick wall is like a natural accent, but it was very bouncy. So that's when we built the green wall. Maybe I can switch cameras here and show you the...
This is when everything breaks.
At the very least, you've got a brick wall to beat your head on if you ever discuss politics.
Why did you do it that way?
right, so-
Why did you...
Because it's... Look, there's...
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh, no.
All right.
Oh,
so there's
the
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 brick wall.
entire studio has now been destroyed.
Yep, this is how it
Day
happens.
It's huge.
You do know you could just add the... You just... See, this is why we need a producer Paul here.
Yeah.
Because producer Paul would hit the add extra camera button under the share screen, and you can use the extra
There is
camera
kind
on
of a
the...
hole over
Oh,
there.
I
where
think
you
I can
put
use
a
my
producer.
phone.
You could do that too, but if you go present, it should be extra
Right.
camera,
Extra camera. I wonder
and then you can use your... See?
All right, so let's see. No.
See? And see, it's already selected the camera from the Mac, and then you can move it and keep the other camera on without having to do that goofy thing that you just did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's smart. This is why you want to be the producer here?
You
No,
crazy
producer Paul.
millennials and your crazy toys.
Yeah, and so Switchboard Co-working is the location. They have been awesome partners. They have been generous and helpful and great cheerleaders. Emily and Tina have been awesome. The community here is really great. And the Libertarian Party of Indiana actually ended up renting a space, so they have an office here. You had the Danny's...
SEC meeting this
Yeah.
morning, down on the basement. We had a nice
nice.
meeting space down there.
Yeah, so the Libertarians are invading the Switchboard Co-working space, and...
So nice.
We got to
meeting
take
place.
over one block at a time. I think that we're going to do it.
I always, when I was at the Libertarian Party of Indiana, I always wanted us to have a storefront in Fountain Square for the headquarters.
Yeah,
Because I always felt like the Fountain Square in Indianapolis is, at the time, especially in the late 2000s, like that was like prime libertarian vibes. Right? So I think it's cool you guys are here in Switchboard along with us.
We've reached a spot where we have some volunteers who put in 20, 30 hours a week. And
Wow.
I think it's helpful to have some of the equipment in a central space where they can access it, even if like our chair is not available. They can come in and like we have a great membership director, Kristen Alexander. She's been doing a great job of following up on membership. She's a big reason why, while everybody else in the country is maybe losing a little bit of memberships because it was an off year last year,
off year.
that we've maintained. We've actually grown in an off year, which is huge. And a lot of that is a credit to her and some of the systems we've put in place of calling members, doing that touch, actually paying attention
What?
to member services.
What?
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy, but she does a great
treating
job of that.
treating members of the party like they matter?
Yes, and so
Weird.
I think it's good for her to have a space to come and make those phone calls, print those membership cards, as well as like our chair, especially if a candidate needs to use the space. That's another thing I love about it. If the Indy Star wants to do an interview and they can come meet here, we can do interviews here. We can do fundraising, events or one-on-ones, here. So I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for the party, and that's why we decided to pull the trigger on that and do it.
Yeah, it is great. It looks professional. You want
It
people
does.
to treat you like a professional party. You want people to donate to a professional party, and this looks legit. You've always was legit, but this
It is legit.
it looks legit.
Look,
Yeah.
my podcast studio is legit. Switchboard's legit. The Libertarian Party. Things are coming up.
Yeah.
libertarian now. I'm just saying.
I managed the convention in 2021, which I had no idea COVID was going to be such a big thing. But the theme of that convention was level up, and that was right around the time I started getting really involved with the state party. And it's a lot of us I call the newer crew.
Yeah.
Have that idea of leveling up. It's time for this party to go to that next level. You know, we are grateful for all the people who laid the groundwork to get us where we are, but it's time to take those next steps and become like a real.
So let me ask you this, because Andy Horning will be up here in 5 minutes. So we've just got 5 minutes left with Danny. Danny, you've been around. You were coming in as I was leaving. So I
came in 2018. Like the state convention was like, 2017. I don't remember.
I feel like you were early.
The year Melissa was there was my first ever real libertarian event.
All right.
I saw the drink cart get turned over and everything. It was great. It was super exciting.
Donahue, Melissa Hubbard. We had a long-standing feud almost 10 years ago with her. This show used to be wild.
And I walked in having no idea about any of that, a complete noob.
Yeah.
And I just showed up from an unaffiliated county. I bought a ticket to the state convention to meet Gary Johnson. That was the whole reason I was there. And then they made me a delegate.
And then there was a 6'2" dominatrix screaming at everyone.
Yeah. And I was like, this is exciting. And I had a voice. As a newbie from an unaffiliated county, I was able to have input, which I know you don't have in places like the Republican and Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And that was amazing to me that I could be part of a process and actually have a say. And that really encouraged me to get more involved in the party. And we founded the Morgan County Party after that and all that stuff.
I feel like a lot of people's experiences with libertarians is online. And I feel like that's overwhelmingly a negative experience. I think it's for you and I soured the whole thing. I'm libertarian. I don't know. You never really described yourself even with that
He's
word.
an anarchist,
Yeah,
right?
Afro-anarcho-monarchist.
Okay. And so I just think people see it online and it's become so much more racist, so much more bigoted.
Crazy. And the truth is, they're all that way. Right? No matter which side, like Republicans, Democrats,
everybody's gone to the extremes.
Flat earthers, it doesn't matter. If it's online, it's going to be extreme and it's going to be impersonal.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's so important that we have more tabling events and we have more social events and we go out and meet people one-on-one, because when we meet people one-on-one, we have great conversations. They ask the questions they're not willing to ask online because they don't want to get dogpiled.
Right.
And we can have a real conversation of, this is why we believe that. And they're like, oh, I at least see where you're coming from. They may not agree with us, but now they understand that policy position maybe a little bit better. And so we do, I think, 7 or 8 this year tabling events in Morgan County. We do a couple of social events. I encourage like all of our counties. I'm a district rep now. I'm encouraging our counties to do those things, make those personal one-on-one connections. Number one, in this day and age, it's rare.
Yes.
And so it's going to be more impactful that you had a one-on-one conversation with somebody, because we all work from home now. This is the most personal interaction I've had in a month. So
that's a huge reason for the studio is that we were able at Harry's to get together once a month. But when I'm doing my podcast, my weekly podcast, I want to do it in person. And if you listen to the last episode about sex trafficking, there was more deep conversation that we were able to have around that sensitive topic because I was sitting right here with him, with Mark. He started crying about Days of Thunder, right? Like it was like it was a great interview because we were able to sit here and look and talk to each other in person. And that's my big thing about podcasting, is it's so much more fun when you're doing it in person.
Yes.
And I think every single aspect of life is coming back to in person. Like people have gone, we got high off of the online supply with social media, and then we got pushed into the extreme with COVID, and then realized all of this is really just bad.
Right.
How can we do stuff in person?
I mean, what is that statistic? It's 80% of communication is nonverbal, right?
Right.
And you don't get that online, especially when you're typing it. But even on a Zoom call, you're not picking up on that body language. You're not picking up on that energy or that vibe that you do when you're in person.
Yeah, I think that was nonverbal communication that this is over. I think that's nonverbal communication that it's not. So you can stick around, Danny. It's fine. That's very threatening.
That was threatening? All I did was just tilt my head.
I'm the oldest child. You can threaten me easily with a look.
Do you feel threatened?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It's because when I see the Libertarian Party people, I was head of I was executive director of the party from 08 to 12, built a ton of relationships and friendships with people, and didn't see people as regularly the last decade. But when I do drop in and I do see them, there's still that connection. But I don't have that connection to people that maybe I was like libertarian online friends with. I just think if you meet a libertarian in person, they're usually not as horrible as the ones that you meet online.
Except me.
Yeah.
I'm actually way worse in person, just so everybody knows.
Well, give people a plug for your county party or the party in general, and then we'll have Andy.
Libertarian Party of Morgan County, we have a lot going on. If you want to support our local county party, you can go to morganlpin.org. If you don't live in Morgan County or you don't want to, donate to a county party, please go to lpin.org. Look up the Indiana Party. We are doing great things here. And, become a member, join us. Whatever you can do to help, we would appreciate. And I know Andy's ready. He's our U.S. Senate candidate, and I appreciate you guys having him on.
Sure, yeah.
Let's get him in here, and he can teach you everything you want to know about something. He's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
You want to go get him?
Yeah, if you would. Yeah.
I'll go get him.
All right, thanks for being here, Danny.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate it. Yes, I've known Andy Horning forever. Andy, you've met Andy, right?
A couple of times, yeah.
This, by the way, is the second time I've accidentally, on purpose, I don't know, brought you to a Libertarian Party event.
Yeah, second time, yeah. Usually I avoid these. I was like, oh, neat, not going there.
I've podcasted with Andy, but I don't know if you've ever podcasted with him or had a conversation with him.
No, I think he met me, but the last time, because when he came on the other time, I couldn't be there, or I think I gave my seat to someone else that wanted to be there. I think that's what it was.
Gotcha.
I don't remember.
So you've never really had a conversation. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Danny. Andy, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you. Harry has not ever really had a conversation with you.
I
don't think.
Tough questions.
This man is the reason I'm a libertarian.
This one?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Mine's the guy
that was
made
like
me
a John
libertarian
McCain reverse racism there.
Very taller.
This one?
Mine's a lot taller.
You like why are you a libertarian, Harry? What turned you?
I thought we were going to be like him.
We'll start with you, and then I'll ask him the same question.
Wow, man. I don't know on the spot, the light here. No, I came to it because, honestly, it took a lot of the road. A lot of different people put different liberty seeds in me just going through high school. And then I've met, most of the time, because online libertarians, especially the early aughts, awful, don't really talk to them.
Yeah.
I did flirting with a little bit, listened to Free Talk Live, and I finally met one in person, local libertarian Joel, and talking with him when I was in college. He just kept talking about it, and he kind of helped fester those ideas, and watched a lot of Firefly, and here I am.
Firefly. So it wasn't necessarily somebody like in person.
No, it was in person. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Meeting Joel, this local libertarian Joel Palmer. A lot of people.
Oh, Joel Palmer. Okay.
Joel Palmer.
All right,
yeah, it was him.
You remember him?
I don't.
All right.
No.
If you saw him, you would remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just this, because especially being around being in college, you meet a lot of like socialists and communists, and they're not really living their ideals, and they complain about capitalism, stuff like that. And then there's Joel, libertarian, living his ideals, talking about this, and allowing these people to be around him. And that was the one thing that was always stuck with me, was, listen, I'm a capitalist. I will allow these two to be here, but if they were in charge, they would not allow me to be here. And that kind of always stuck with me. Yeah.
How did Andy, welcome, you're running for Senate again.
U.S. Senate. You could go ahead and say the word perennial candidate. I've heard it already. Yes.
I was going to call you Lucy. No, it's Charlie Brown. But yeah, no, you and I met in 2004. I was a little baby.
2003, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was College Republicans president. I'm about to be president. And we volunteered for his campaign for Congress in the 7th District when he ran for a Republican. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't know he had run as a libertarian. He had run for mayor. He had run for Congress. And then I kept bringing to the campaign headquarters my little Rush Limbaugh talking points. And he'd be like, have you thought about how really dumb that is?
I didn't say dumbass, but...
No, I was a great mixture of really cocky and underinformed. It was a perfect cocktail.
Yes, but I still remember. In fact, I wish I knew what I did with that notebook you brought. And it was a binder.
Yeah.
You brought a binder of competition information on Julia Carson and issues and all this stuff. It was like that thick.
Oh, nice.
I did Oppo
research. So I remembered that. And that was it was very well organized. And I was very impressed with you, young man.
Thank you.
So that was, and that was a fun campaign, even though that was probably some of the ugliest stuff I'd ever done in politics, was meeting some of the money people. I don't know if you remember, I was traveling around with actually went to Florida and Arizona and met with some congressmen and Congresswoman, and I met all the big money people with like snake-eyed people. You could just see like Darth Vader eyes, kind of just scary stuff. And they accused me of stealing Mitch Daniels' yard signs. And
no, Mitch Daniels' campaigns took your yard signs.
Oh no, I know, but they accused me.
Okay,
I actually remember there are a lot of people who did not want Mitch Daniels' yard signs. They wanted my yard sign, and they said, "Get these yard signs out of my yard. I'll put your yard sign, but I don't want Mitch Daniels." Okay, fine. And I took the Mitch Daniels' yard signs and I brought them to the Republican Party headquarters, which is isn't that
seems fair?
And at the time, nobody said anything about, okay, thank you for bringing these signs back, and I understand. But it later came out that they were accusing me behind my back of stealing Mitch Daniels' yard signs. and a lot of people knifed me in the back in that campaign.
I remember that your yard signs were going missing and getting replaced with Mitch signs.
Yeah.
And the campaign manager admitted, because we went and we were like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, look, in 2000, McIntosh lost the governor's race because Julia Carson's opponent scared her.
Yep.
And he lost Center Township, so he lost the governor's race. And we can't have that in a tight race with Mitch, so we've just been taking your signs and Marvin Scott signs out.
And I heard that a lot of people, the money people were all telling me that pretty openly. They were friendly, and that they were giving me what they thought was advice. You keep your powder dry. Just don't do anything in this election cycle. Just keep your head down. And we just don't want to rile up that base. Yeah, and so we're not going to give you any money. We like you, Andy. And that was their message.
Yeah.
Is that the main reason why it feels like the Indiana GOP just feel like they just abandoned Central Township? They just because they're worried about the other things outside the donut?
So if you're not from Indiana, we have Indianapolis is in the center of the state. And then it's in the center county. And then the township in the middle is Center Township. And that's where like the circle is. So it like circles down to circles.
2 blocks to north, though.
Right. And then you have basically this, at the time, it was a large population of Democrats. It's still very progressive in the Center Township, but it's like the whole county has expanded to being very progressive.
Yeah.
And the congresswoman at that time was a pioneer black congresswoman and had a very loyal, strong base. At the time, you had ward chairmen, you had precinct committeemen. Once McCain-Feingold happened, or is it McCain? It was Citizens United. Citizens United changed that whole structure. But Julia Carson in 2004 had the ability to mobilize all these local people to get out the vote efforts to change the effect on certain races because it was still pretty competitive. Now what you have is it's very blue in our county. It's very purple in the donut counties. And then it's very red, like where Andy lives. And it's very polarized. And there's no precinct committeeman anymore. There's no ward chairman. There's no give except for maybe a couple townships in Hamilton County. But it really did matter. Politics, when I started, when you were running for mayor and Congress, it was much different than it is now. Now it's much more money, much more controlled by the guys he's talking about.
There is also, even at that time, they still had she had the Dove Fund, Democrats United for Victory, and then they had the larger Get Out the Vote, like Acorn, and what was the other one that was local?
Purple Union.
No, there's one that was the one that they were the ones that we found busing people around from the same people around from precinct to precinct. I can't remember the name of that group. But anyway, they had a very powerful machine for not only getting out the vote, but for fraud, which you got to admit they were pretty good at it. And now that we know that it's probably better organized and more national now, because we've got like the illegal alien vote and all that kind of stuff going on, and where they've actually legalized it for municipal elections, and they've been telling people that if you just don't tell anybody you're an illegal alien, and we registered you to vote for these municipal elections, but you can go ahead and vote for Biden. And so this is the kind of stuff, it's been going on for some time. And even as far, I remember, what was it, the Box 13 scandal with LBJ, where he got 200 people voting in alphabetical order and that kind of stuff.
He was, when he ran for, I think, governor, his first Senate race
that was
in
his
Texas.
First state Senate.
It was crazy. If you read the Caro books, the cheating was unbelievable.
It's never really been different. It's just better hidden now and better organized. And we have a media that's more amenable to covering those things up because they're ideologically aligned with them.
To answer your question, yes, Republicans have totally given up on Marion County because they just ran a guy for mayor who put 7, 15, 20, 50 million. It could have been who it was totally saturated with his own money because he's a 500 millionaire.
Yeah.
And he got his butt whooped by a mayor who's very unpopular by pretty much every elite, every institution, every citizen.
Yep.
Doesn't
That
like
was
the
an
guy, but he
awful
still won.
campaign, though.
Yeah, he also ran an awful campaign. Yes. Yeah.
You had the Republican running for mayor going, you know what, I think all these he just totally lost every Republican because he was pro-gun confiscation.
Yeah.
And
He's actually pro everything the Democrat was about. So,
Yes. Yeah. It made no sense. It's like, why go with the devil I don't know and I'll stick with the devil I do know?
So so Andy's running for Senate, and he's always very articulate, always very popular in terms of especially the televised debates, which for a libertarian, Indiana has the Indiana Debate Commission. Every state should have a debate commission like ours. And in their charters that if you have ballot access, you have access to the televised debates. No more of this cabal of local TV stations shutting out the third parties. We're going to accurately reflect your ballot.
Yep.
Every poll, every debate should reflect what you actually are voting on.
Correct.
And so Andy will be in the televised debates with the other two candidates if the Republicans decide to actually participate. You're running against Jim Banks on the Republican side. We don't even know who the Democrat is. I don't know. You probably do. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
I don't think they have anyone yet, right?
I mean,
no, they do. There's, in fact, what is that lady's name? I can't remember. She's a psychologist. Actually, she's come on. She's actually said some good stuff related to prison reform and so on. But economically speaking, I absolutely disagree with her.
But in a state like Indiana, we saw with Don Rainwater's campaign in 2020, where he was second place in 33 and a third of the counties in the state. And so Jeremiah Morrell, I found out yesterday, is appointed to the merit board in his town and has a sheriff's badge. So he's fully become Boss Hogg.
Oh, wow. Oh, no.
For real. But the reason he was appointed by John Sproles, the sheriff, is that you have to have two parties on all of these boards and commissions in the state. So Republicans have wised up and stopped appointing Democrats and started appointing Libertarians. So for most of the state, Andy, you are their second viable option when you're running for Senate. Would you have ever imagined that we would get to that point when you started running in the late 90s?
I'd always dreamed of it, of course. But no, I never really expected it. And that's where I think now we have just an amazing set of circumstances where people like Dennis Kucinich is running as an independent and he's been getting interviews, and RFK Jr. and more people than ever are saying they're independent, and more people than ever have actually been turning away from the two-party system in one way or another. And what was that last poll? It was like 67% of Americans say we need a third party. All of that's new. And I think it's like in the Declaration of Independence, where it says mankind are disposed to suffer as long as evils are sufferable, rather than to...
Now you flunked. You flunked your test.
You know the thing.
You got farther than I would have.
Yeah, I was supposed to know that one. But anyway, the idea is we'll put up with an awful lot before we're going to do anything about it. And the Founding Fathers were getting shot at, and it was still only less than 25% of them who wanted to leave their country, basically, to fight their own government. And so I think we have a high level of disgust because a lot of people are hurting. And whether they're hurting enough, I don't know, because it takes a lot to make people change their minds and actually affect their voting arm. But you think about how many people know our government's corrupt. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
How many people are...
Even if you don't think it's corrupt, you know it's not working for you.
And that's, I guess what I have to say is...
Corrupt is... it could be... It's like a populist term, so it could mean anything to anybody.
Yeah.
But you, at the heart of hearts, I think every person you talk to in America knows that the government closest to them, to Joe Biden, is not functioning for them in a proper way.
Right.
Something's not right in how that works. Either their money's getting stolen or politicians or whatever, that corruption, that there's something not right about how things work.
There is some truth coming out. There's finally some truth coming out about whether it's COVID or whether it's about our, what's really going on with our military-industrial complex and so on. And, the CIA, all of this stuff. And now people are starting to see that maybe we've been getting lied to enough that it really is starting to affect me personally.
Yeah, I think with a lot of different people, especially in the online space, they're noticing that the FBI has the ability to go after people for watching a YouTube video, but for other things they can't figure out. Oh, we have no idea how this child sex ring got this way, but we can find someone because they watched this other video on YouTube. Or, we can use a lot of different algorithms that we have to flag and get people for typing different words, but everything else, we have no idea how these different rings have gone to. It's the selection of what they go in police. I think that's also like bringing attention.
Harry, how much of it is that we have become more of a niche down internet culture, especially as like millennials and Gen Z? More of us have gotten more after the pandemic, more niche down, more into our own little silos. And so it's more noticeable when those sorts of things start happening.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. When they start going into different spaces, you're absolutely right. Because they had some cover because everything wasn't so walled garden and everyone's like meshed together. But now you're right. Everyone's in their own little siloed pillars into different platforms. It's very noticeable when the Fed comes in and does something. And then other channels go and talk about that type of drama that goes from that. Yeah.
And then it's like you cross-pollinate the different niches, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, what do you mean this happened there? And then they go, okay, this sounds the exact same thing that happened to us.
There's a very well-known libertarian podcaster that I never liked that made up lies about me that pretty much everybody agrees now worked for the federal government. He's no longer in the libertarian space. He's moved on to other spaces. But it's like his behavior got so ridiculous and obvious to everyone. And if you think about it, you start a libertarian podcast, instead of hiding in the shadows, you start a podcast, you invite the craziest people in the space to come online and say in public exactly what they think.
Remind me to ask you who that was afterward.
I will. And so you get these people on tape, and then it drives people to you because they're coming to watch the freak show, and you're building these relationships with people. And then you're getting in access because you have a high profile in the vertical. You get access to all of these discords where you are all of a sudden, when you look at the log, the most active person. You're never participating, but you're the most active person.
Always on.
You get to monitor because everybody's excited that you're there. Media like this has given people access to these spaces in very public way. So I look at it and I go, 20 years ago when we first met, you had to have some dough to be a broadcaster or to have some reach or to do marketing. It doesn't really take much. You just need to niche down enough to get into some of these extreme groups. And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, no, if you've ever read the book Rats, it's about how to find snitches and stuff like that. Michael W. Dean always talked about it. Like, it's a great book. If you're doing anything with a group and you really think there could be a Fed in there, it's a great book. It's called Rats. It's free online.
I guess I don't care if there's a Fed because I never do anything. Like, I know that's like a very normie thing to say, but
when you say that, though, I think a lot of people are starting to understand that if we do get CBDCs, for instance,
which is what?
The digital currency that is central bank
digital currency,
so,
which is stupid.
So if they're able to have a line item veto on everything you buy, so they can, or do, I don't think you should go to that concert. I don't think you should be hanging out with those people. You drank too much. The idea is that they will be able to edit what you spend, where you spend it, and so on. And that's been their stated objective for some time. And so you think about what it is that the Agenda 2030 from the UN has been about, which is largely by the direction of Klaus Schwab and the WEF, which started in 1971 or whatever, way back when. So these things, it's not secret where things are going. And when people start saying, it doesn't affect me, they're not really looking very far ahead, because this will affect everybody. It's going to affect where you can live, whether you have to live in a 15-minute city, which is another one of their objectives, whether you can, like I live on a farm, I've got 2 creeks and a pond on my property that will be really under, if they have their way, it's not going to be my property anymore. At least those things are going to be controlled by...
Meaning that some board will control your waterways.
There's a lot of control over our waterways anyway, but this is not going to be United States doing it. The idea is going to be what the original UN Charter, the League of Nations Charter, was originally supposed to be. Literal one world government, where the whole idea of nation states disappears, and we have one organization that controls all of the military force, all of the legislation, everything is going to be controlled centrally. And it's not just the Malthusian eugenicist crazy talk stuff that I happen to believe also, but the fact that this has been their stated objective for over 100 years now.
But you and I don't buy into everything you're saying, so I want to push back. Because I could see the currency, for instance. It'd be very easy to make us a cashless society, and then you get Chinese control, but
we're pretty much a cashless society already.
But like when you say they want one world government, right? When you see the world trending away from that in terms of their choices of government, we're moving more towards authoritarian governments. And this year alone, in terms of the elections, you could see India, the United States. I think it's 50% of the world is going to choose their world leader. It's like the biggest election year of all time. And most of the favorites to win are people who are pretty nationalist away from this
part
stuff.
of the WEF.
Okay.
If you're actually looking
And why does that matter? The World Economic Forum.
What is the World Economic Forum all about? I mean,
you tell me. Yeah.
The World Economic Forum long ago was actually the whole point was to make a one world government. Everything's going to be more equitable, more sustainable, more central in terms of economics, and that you will own nothing and be happy stuff. That really is WEF.
And this is people meet in Davos. It's led by Klaus Schwab. It's where all the CNBC broadcasts from there. It's all the billionaires meet together. They have their side conversations. They have their panels, and they talk about
our government is run by. I think everybody understands, about the lobbyists. They understand about the permanent partisan staffers. They understand about the bundlers. But what they probably don't get is one of the most clever things about the WEF was putting real teeth into the prospect of one world government by getting corporations on board. So when you have a consortium of corporations, for example, the Trusted News Initiative, it was ostensibly started by the BBC, but very quickly, Google, all of the major media, Disney, they all became part of this TNI, this Trusted News Initiative. So they're all on board with this.
And these are the people that the fact checkers at Facebook, they trust their sources. So when your meme gets fact checked, they're going to this pool of trusted news sources.
AP, all of everybody, all of the trusted media that have been around forever, all of the big newspapers and so on, although they're shrinking, that's TNI. And there is a consortium like that. When you've got the search engines, you've got all of our media sources already under there. When you've already got corporations like BlackRock, part of the WEF also. Do you understand the power we're talking about here? When you get corporations on board, Lockheed, all of the military-industrial complex guys, they all have the same. And look what's going on with Boeing right now.
Yeah.
All of this is now part of the WEF plan. And while it does sound like crazy talk because it's so extreme, you got to be thinking some of this, how much of world history has been like that, where it's just too crazy. Stalin, too crazy. Hitler, too crazy. Mao, too crazy. This has been going on for thousands of years. I mean, you had Caligula order his army to go attack the sea. And you've got crazy in our gene pool going way, way back. And so to think that you have somebody like Klaus Schwab who says these things out loud, you think he doesn't mean it? He does mean it.
Yeah.
And he's got the people behind him to make it happen. And so when we're talking about what's really been going on for a long time, and you read books like Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Blackmail, which you really ought to check that out. Some of this stuff, it is not just that it's scary, because my interest is not in scaring anybody. My interest is making people wake up and do something about it, because we have all the power. What's frustrating is we have the numbers, we have the reason to do something about all of this, because we have to live with the results, and we have the power of peaceful revolution as Plan A, but Plan B is ours too. And
and we're live. Ron Milford asked if we're real live. So if you want to ask a question, feel free to leave a comment, and we'll ask Andy. But where I come down on it, I look at it and I go, things really are bottom up as opposed to top down. And when you have all of these egotistical people at the top, it's very hard for them to keep their plans together, because these are not people who can work together for a long period of time. These top down impulses always break apart because, like with COVID, for instance, you can't get the American people to stay in their house for that long because we will riot, literally riot.
Yes and no. Yes and no. So you got to say that it isn't exactly top down. It isn't exactly bottom up because you've got the bell curve going on here.
Okay,
so you have an awful lot of people. Most people will follow somebody.
Yes.
And it doesn't, with something like COVID, look at how many people did do as they were supposed to do. Look at how many people are still getting boosted. You think about what it is that makes people believe one media source, not believe another. So these people will say Epoch Times, for instance, is crazy talk. That's all nuts. These other people will say that the New York Times is nuts. That's all crazy talk. Then we know they're lying. They've lied forever. And so you've got this impulse where we follow somebody, we follow our news sources, we follow a political leader, we follow a doctor. There's always some, and it could shift based on what issue we're talking about. We can be Democrats on this issue or Republicans on this issue. We could be gay on this issue, straight on this issue. And so all of the divisions that we keep coming up with have their own associations that can shift. But I think the people who are managing the divisions, I don't even say clever. It's a human default that we do certain things. The divide and conquer stuff is very old. It doesn't take a lot of genius.
And so by creating divisions, I think you, and then I'll go to you, but it's really, if you pay attention, the stuff that gets pushed or things that like become controversies seem to be in concert, right? It could be groupthink. It probably is groupthink, right? Everybody went to the Columbia School of Journalism, so they have a certain set of training and certain set of biases, and they all think alike. And so this thing tends to outrage people who think this way. But you could also look at it and go, man, it really does seem like when this one issue that feels like it serves a purpose gets pushed by every mainstream outlet, then and a lot of times the other way, it gets pushed by Russian propaganda through various independent outlets and memes and paid advertising on social media. It really does feel like so much of what we see online is picked for us to fight over. From somebody, be it a foreign power, a
trusted news
initiative, whatever. Like, and opting out of that, I'm going to be honest with the listeners, if you can't tell. The last 6 months, I've been so focused on building this business that I have not paid attention to a lot of the news. Harry, I have been so happy.
Feels good, doesn't it?
I know. I did a ton of episodes in November to get me through this busy period, and now I'm starting to pay attention again, and I'm like, man, so much of this feels like total bullcrap.
Yeah.
It feels like we're being fed something from somebody, as opposed to just tell me what the facts are, because
that is what's going on.
Yeah. I will say this with the Epoch Times. Epoch Times does have a slanted bias, but when it comes to reporting on the CCP, it's great stuff.
But that's the point. That
was because Chinese. Started out as a Chinese. Yeah.
It started out by Chinese people who were
the Feng Gong.
It's like a cult that hates China, that hates CCP, and so their anti-China stuff's magnificent because they're like. They take all the information from dissidents, and they put it out. They have
RT is great on some stuff too, though. Yep. If you look at all of the different sources that are available to you, you pick and choose, and you match it up to what you know about humans, you can probably get a pretty accurate idea about what's going on.
Yeah.
And if you match it up to history and what we've always done in the past, it's pretty easy to see that with a combination of technology, with the same old Caligula, Nero, Pol Pot madness that we fall for every now and then, we have these epics where global domination seems like a good idea, and there are always people willing to do it.
Yeah, but technology and word of mouth goes a lot faster. I think the one thing we did learn out of COVID is that the reason why the United States is always a thorn in all those different plans is the freedom of speech. We will talk, we will open our mouths, and outside of the walls of the United States, that really doesn't exist.
In the Second Amendment.
Yeah, in the Second Amendment, yes. It's very important.
You can only put orange construction gating around playgrounds for so long before Greenwood
First
starts to get-
Amendment is a freedom.
Yeah, First Amendment first, then the second.
Second
yeah,
Amendment,
Yeah,
yeah.
You don't use the second if the first fails. 'Cause
I didn't. That was my
Constitution just
podcast
paper.
on both First and Second Amendments, by the way. So.
I'm just saying, it's like the Bill of Rights is really important.
Oh yeah,
It is,
yeah.
but it's also deeply under attack.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think we should all be alarmed at is how we're losing the freedom to speak. In fact, especially after whatever you say happened with the insurrection or whatever in Washington, D.C., you got to at least
peaceful
say that the way our Justice Department has treated it, the people who were involved in that since then, has had quite a chilling effect on 3 of those 6 freedoms in the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And so thinking about our petition, assembly, and speech. And those are critical. And if we lose that, and if we're not just going along with that T&I thing, one of the things that we've known for a long time, there's a study back in the 70s, in fact, talking about how the media don't really tell you what to think. They tell you what to think about. And so you're not going to be thinking about stuff that they're not telling you about. And you might differ from what they say about a particular subject, but that is the subject you will be thinking about.
Yeah.
And if they're not mentioning stuff, like as libertarians, we know this. It's almost better to get bad publicity. I'd rather people say Andy's a terrible person than have nothing come out at all in the media.
I think Trump showed that, right?
Yeah, Trump is a good example, too, where they were trying to say really bad things about Trump, and a lot of them were true, but people don't care.
Most of them are true.
It's hard to come up with a bad thing to say about Trump that isn't true. But
That's I think the superpower for Trump is that he goes, and? I think that's his superpower is and. Yeah, I cheated on my wife with a porn star while my wife was pregnant, and I think that to me
when
is
he comes out to, I could shoot somebody and people would still vote
that's
for
a powerful moment because that's the moment that Trump realizes he's onto something. He
Yeah.
realizes there's something going on where he has a durability that other people don't have.
Yeah.
And he has taken it so much further than probably he ever dreamed.
Yeah.
To the point that I think it's actually scary now how much people just don't care about what is true about the guy.
But
That,
there's another phenomenon in there, too. Sorry.
I was just saying, but it's just also the other side. It's the other side of it because when we were also talking about with Hunter Biden, right? What he has done, if that's illegal or not, doesn't matter. It probably should be. He's gotten so much money just because of his last name, of his family being in office. And
yeah,
that's the
you're
problem.
saying he's put on boards because he's Joe Biden's son and he gets all this money and then he has all this immunity because he's
Correct. Yeah, it's just okay. Yeah, this is
caught
not
with
illegal.
drugs.
This still looks bad. This looks
Right.
awful. You know?
Yeah, what Hunter Biden was doing was legalized corruption.
Correct. Yeah.
His
yeah.
dad would go and give a speech against one party in a country, and then the party that was helped by the speech would pay Hunter Biden.
Dubiously, if what I think happened, it was quite illegal. And that
Yeah.
you know, the money has been pretty well hidden. The money trail has not yet been revealed to us.
Right, yeah.
But if it's what I think it is, it's totally illegal. And it's
Yeah.
By the
no
same
one moves
token,
money
you have-
that way if it's above board.
The
Just
Trump
like no one
ad-
puts an email servers in a bathroom if it's all above board.
But the Trump administration goes and legitimizes Saudi Arabia, gives them all these weapons deals, helps spur on the war.
after campaigning against it, of course.
Yep.
And then when Jared Kushner leaves the office, after Trump leaves office, Jared Kushner gets $2 billion for the Saudis.
I know. But see,
It's
that's just
crazy how that happens.
This is what we have come to expect from politicians. And one of the things that I have to say about this whole Trump phenomenon, though, is that I don't think that these Trump supporters all like Trump.
Yeah.
In fact, I know an awful lot of them do not. It's just that they think that Biden is so much worse.
Yeah.
And that's generally been the case where we've been getting more and more divided to the point where it's not so much that I like my party, it's just that I hate that other one so much that I fear what will happen if they win. And that's what I'm going to be facing that in this upcoming election, where I think it'd be easy to prove to anybody who's listening that I'm going to be the only candidate who's at least constitutional. I'm going to be the only candidate who's not part of the problem already. You're not going to make it worse. But that's not what people are. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping that everything changes in this next election, and I'm seeing positive signs. But what has happened up to now is people throw all of that stuff away. And they've been telling me, Andy, you're the best candidate. I agree with everything you have to say, but I've got to vote for you. I can't let that
You've heard
guy
that your whole career, though.
my whole time. And that has been so powerful for so long. But there's got to be a hinge point here. There's got to be a point at which people, you look to see, what is the approval rate of Congress right now? It's low double digits, maybe single digits in some cases. But what's been the reelection rate? 98% of the U.S. House.
Yeah.
That is where the hinge point has to be. We don't like what's going on, but we reelect them. That mental, there's got to be a switch in there where that dissonance has got to end.
Let's go back to the World Economic Forum stuff, because this is it's not that I think you're wrong. I think you're right. But I also think just the ability for top-down planners to have long-term, serious... I don't know that you could get one world government implemented and have it last very long.
Don't get me wrong. It will fail. Everything. Yeah. One thing you have to say about all human civilizations is that they've got a multi-thousand-year record of 100% failure.
Because at the end of the day, I want you to talk about the top-down, the bottom-up piece, the second choice that you were talking about. Because that's the piece that I really try to talk about a lot about.
And that's
because governments are inherently... Bureaucracy in and of itself is evil. It will always march towards grinding human beings down into little dust. But there always is the choice of every person to resist bureaucracy, to resist injustice, to resist bigotry, to resist all the evils of history that we see playing out in our own times. Like the sex trafficking episode. And you've touched on this, and we may disagree a lot more on it now, but the choice to whether or not to watch porn. If you're going, you have a better chance than not for that woman to probably be sex trafficked, unless Harry would say, unless you're trying to be safe about it, right? Your choice is participating in an evil act, right? There's all these little choices that we have on a daily basis where we can participate in light or dark.
Yeah.
Not just with our votes, but we contribute to these systems through these series of choices.
Keep in mind that this WEF thing is not new. You can trace it all the way back to at least the Fabian socialists of the 1800s in England. If you look at how many societies have come and gone, how many nations have come and gone with these principles. Mm-hmm. And so you can go back to the 1820s with the New Harmony, the Owenites, to see what their dreams were. And you can make a continuum where they try it, bam, try it, bam, try it, bam. And the scale goes up. So this is going to be just my little New Harmony. But then you say, this is a great idea, even though it failed in only 7 years. Let's try to make this bigger. And you keep seeing how these people take this utopian dream, which you can, if you ignore a lot of human history and you can imagine that we're bees or something, it sounds wonderful. Mm-hmm. But as you scale it up to the Wilsonian notion of the League of Nations, which also failed, and then we ended up getting the UN, which has failed up to now. But
look at Ukraine, look at Israel, look at Gaza,
Cambodia, look at
Somalia.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's awful. But the point is, if you have enough people with money now to at least push it through, I'm not saying it's going to last. We're going to get hurt when it fails. And really, one of the things that I've stressed for decades now is that it's not like I've been fooling myself into thinking that I'm going to win and take over the government or anything like that. One of the things I was hoping libertarians could do at the very least is get ourselves into positions of at least respect, where when things do crumble, and they are crumbling, the trillions of debt that we ever hear about don't include the Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid unfunded liabilities. If you include those, you're talking way over $200 trillion in debt and unfunded bond debt. And this is unsustainable. Now, whether it crashes or whether we keep inflating ourselves out, because national economies are graded on a global scale, and everybody is screwing up right now. You've got the BRICS nations, which just expanded, though they just added a bunch of new nations.
Brazil, Russia, India, and China.
And now it's not just them. So that they've added 6 more nations, and they've got a bigger global effect where they've got arrangements with. They've got basically half the world's oil supply under their control. And in the next 5 years, if they do what they're talking about, they will be able to make some kind of a market currency that they would like to make replace the U.S. dollar. And if they're successful, and you think about the things that the United States is doing, forget WEF. Think about what we're doing, pushing Russia into more alliance with China. Instead, we've had many opportunities to get Russia more on our side. And even recently, we've had lots of opportunities with Syria and so on where we could have helped each other.
George Bush floated the idea of Russia joining NATO and pulled the rug out from under Putin. And there's a great book called "Who Lost Russia," and you read that book, and it's just repeated rug pulling under. Right. And I am not saying that we caused them to invade. I don't agree with those libertarians, but I do think you're exactly right that we have repeatedly, our government has repeatedly bungled the relationship with Russia. And China has. I remember playing this for you in 2000. Ronald Reagan has this audio book where he used to do in the 70s those interviews.
You gave me a bunch of cassette tapes.
So in the cassette tapes, he's talking about the CCP in the 70s. Talking about how we're going to go after the USSR and Russia first and topple them, and then we're going to topple America by basically engaging with them and luring them along and then toppling them, and we're going to play the long game, and the Americans can't. And we need to be worried about China, and this is like 1976. And Ryan Lindsay, who used to be on the network and ran the magazine, used to say China's the end game of liberalism. You're going to end up with a social credit score if you continue down the liberal path. Now, I don't know. He was more of a socialist. He's a libertarian. You monarchist libertarians. But I just look at it and I go, look, I can't control if there's one world government or not. All I can do is just take care of the 100 people around me and try to make good decisions and be aware that, anybody in power is going to try to take advantage of their situation, their power to enrich themselves, to get more power for themselves. What form that is, I can't control it. All I can do is just try to make good, informed decisions and tell people about the alternative, which we'll talk about after Harry makes this point.
Yeah, that's also going to Andy's point about libertarians getting into different spaces. So one thing I've gotten into in the last few years is strong towns or the 15-minute city. And I realize if I'm there when the people are having the discussions, we can easily make a nice 15-minute city where you can walk that, but I still have access to my car. My car can get around. I can still leave. I'm not talking about making sure we can get cars and trucks in here. No, I want to be able to walk and get to everything 15 minutes.
Explain the 15-minute city.
The idea of the 15-minute city that everyone should be able to leave outside their door in about a 15-minute walk. They should be able to get to hospital, grocery store, a third place, stuff like that, like school. Everything's just easy walk, almost like you're living downtown, but you're in a small little town like mine. And I've got that almost to the point where in my small town, I can easily 15-minute walk to all these different things. But I still have access to my car. Can leave. I can go somewhere else. I can. But some people have that idea. Also, there's the people who control and keep people in those 15-minute cities. You're not allowed to leave. Right. They want to get rid of the cars and go like that. And that's what.
So in downtown Indianapolis, so I live in a place called Fall Creek Place. It's very close to downtown. It's 20 blocks north of downtown. I won't give you my address. Because we're doing very well on our X stream. And those people are crazy. But, we're up to 80 people, and almost all of that is X. So, Elon, keep it up. But
it's good quality.
I'll even call it X if you're going to keep giving us those stream numbers. Where I live, it is it was a desert, like a food desert, and there's a Dollar General, which is how you know you live in a bad place.
Yeah, you got to get rid of the Dollar General.
Because what Dollar General does is they plot out every Walmart, and then they drop a Dollar General like 30 minutes away from the Walmart. And so it ends up in inner city areas like mine or urban or rural areas like where you live. And so your food options become like processed food. And
and you have to get rid of those places because you cannot get a local grocery if you have a Dollar General in there. Because if those shelf stable stuff that they're selling, if you try to get a local grocery, the margins are going to that Dollar General, not to the grocery store. They have to take the hits on the perishables and not be able to have the shelf stable stuff that Dollar General. You have to get that Dollar General.
Dollar General has heard the criticism and has now Dollar General grocery stores that they're starting to plot out, especially in rural areas. But I live in a part of town that is very walkable, and there are things like a lot of mixed-use buildings being built, and it's a great place to live because you can walk to a bunch of different things, and you have a lot of different options. And what they want here in Indianapolis is for you to stay in your particular part of town and maybe even go to a different part of town, but don't come downtown.
Right.
Especially with your car. So they just put in all of these no-turn on red signs. The state legislator threw a big fit named Aaron Freeman about it and negotiated no more adding of signs, and they took the 3 signs around the State House away that bothered them. So they got that done. But I have been nearly hit more times in the last 4 months because of these signs, because I walk downtown all the time. I ride my bike, I walk. Because when the light is green, and that is when you are green and you can turn right. Mm-hmm. That is also when that crosswalk allows you to cross.
That's
and so now people are trying to gun it, and they say, forget you trying to cross. You no longer have the right of way. I have to get where I'm going, or else I'm going to get trapped for 2 more lights. And now more people are in danger because they want to, it's for pedestrian safety. But what they did is they did this, so now it's harder to drive downtown, it's harder to turn right, it's harder to get around. They also rebuilt the interstate. And when I mean they, I mean a specific set of city leaders, right? I'm not saying the Jews. I'm saying a specific set of individuals where people who live here know who they are. Mm-hmm. They also, the state and the city redid the interstate and took out the most beneficial on-ramp.
Oh, yeah.
And so now you can't, now I'm forced, instead of just driving down to the interstate, hopping on it to get to the other 2 interstates, I have to drive downtown. So they're causing intentional traffic jams downtown. So now all of a sudden, you don't want to drive down there.
All cities used to be 15-minute cities. And we have lots of 15-minute cities still. The difference is like the same. You can have communism. You can have communes in a libertarian society. And if it's voluntary, fine. No problem with that. You can have 15-minute cities in a libertarian society. No problem with that if people have the liberty to do everything they want anyway. That's not what the Klaus Schwab 15-minute cities are all about. And what the 15-minute cities are becoming, or what you're talking about, to the max, where not only do you have the traffic controls and all of that stuff that make it very difficult to do anything else, they're also going to use CBDCs and other control mechanisms,
which are
to the central bank digital currency.
Gotcha. Okay.
To make sure that you don't drive too far. They'll be able to. We can already track where you go.
So in New York, they've got the congestion cameras right now. What they like to do, and what they have is a camera. They see your license plate. If they call congestion or traffic, they'll just dock you and send you more money. You pay us more because you're dying during congestion.
Or in 10 years, just shut your car off.
Correct. Yeah, they're already putting in the kill switch in newer cars. They want to get that plan and to put that in there. But yes,
that's like Michael Hastings.
Yeah, they got the cameras up there. They're already up. They've been up in the UK for the last 4 years.
You've heard about how they can hack cars already, and they can steer you off to the side of the road and stop you.
Yeah,
that's already the case where the technology is there. Built into new cars to a degree. Yeah. Now, it's only going to get more. And that's where I think one of the saving graces of getting back to your point a little bit, one of the saving graces of all of this is that government is inherently incompetent. And to whatever degree they want to control everybody, just look at what they do with data. They're always like leaking tax data and all this kind of stuff. Medicare data just gets out everywhere. And having worked in technology in my whole life, I understand that not only is it very powerful, but it's also very fragile. And that there isn't anything that can't be hacked. There isn't anything that can't be screwed up. And if government is in charge of it, politicians and bureaucrats and all of this stuff, there will be lots of screw-ups.
Yeah.
But I think that it's not like it's going to fail. But one of the things we need to do as libertarians, or people who just want to be more free than we are now even, we just have to be ready for when things do screw up, because we are screwing up. No, I don't know if we're going to have World War III. I find it hard to believe. I'm a doomsayer. That's kind of part of my
We're opposites
my
in that respect. I'm like, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
it'll all work out.
But
and you're like, oh no, it won't.
No. I think it will work out, but it's just going to work out in doom. But so the idea is that I don't think that the military-industrial complex and the scientific technological elite that Eisenhower warned us about all those decades ago.
Yeah.
I think that combination of groups wants to maintain a stable set of violent encounters, like low-level wars that are just always going on.
Yeah, Iran hits an airport, and so we take out one of their... It escalates because now Iran and Israel are hitting each other, but they're warning each other first. But the main thing is the bombs in America are gone, so we have to buy more.
So we train and arm and equip both sides of every conflict.
Right.
Just wait until it's drone on drone combat. It's drones fighting drones, and it's just a game. Then it's just like, hey, I need some extra money.
No, but I think your point of we want stability is the point, right? We want everything to be homogenous. We want everything to be the same. We want everything to be predictable, because in a society like that, not only can you maximize profit, you can also keep people like
to a degree.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, you have it's better for markets, it's better for bottom lines, it's better for profit. And this is where I think our leftist libertarian friends have some points about private equity and major corporations, where they have some of that right. Where you go, yeah, like you watch the Boeing documentary on Netflix, and you go, okay, yeah, I could see how my left socialist libertarian buddies are right about how profit is, if you make that the god, then all of a sudden the god fails.
But in this case, there are two things that are going to make it fail. One is you run out of other people's money sooner or later. Right. And that's where we're squeezing. The transfer of wealth to a smaller and smaller group of people has been going on for a long time. But that transfer of wealth is also shrinking the amount of wealth to steal from.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a fixed pie or anything like that, but productivity is also starting to fall.
Yeah.
And we've also got another thing with technology that I think a lot of people are beginning to understand, is that it doesn't take a whole nation to cause an awful lot of trouble anymore. And that you can have a guy in his basement, his mother's basement, hacking into a power grid. Or you can have somebody gets pretty clever with drones and can do an awful lot of damage on the cheap.
Or with AI, you now have the Harrys of the world have a new set of tools to fight these bureaucracies and corporations who are much slower, much less. Like guerrillas always beat the Vietnamese, always beat the Americans,
and that's how Americans beat the British.
Right.
And you've got all of these other. You've got lots of things that I don't think the guys in charge. Currently in charge they're not managing it very well right now. And so one of the things that makes me optimistic, because I do have that side in me also, actually, it's a very small side of me, but the fact that there are cracks in their walls now, and I think the failure is now becoming evident enough to them that they're starting to get scared, which is why we are losing a lot of our liberties. Some of the veneer is starting to come off. You're starting to see the silk glove is not coming off. It's just wearing out.
When eggs are $4 and gas is $4 and it's like a grocery run today to get some basic processed foods that are supposed to be cheap is $50, and then all of a sudden you go,
a box of cereal for $6.
What is this? This bull crap that, like the little bag of grapes that were on sale was $7, and my income hasn't gone up. Like my paycheck hasn't increased.
Well, that's just it.
Because they don't have the ability to do that. Like I'm not calling them out. It's just everybody's strained.
I wish Trump supporters knew how much of our current inflation is due to his administration.
It's the greatest con in history. Thank you. This man is a genius. This is the greatest 8D chess that he ever played, because the man passed 2 stimulus bills, wrote the third, put Fauci in charge, shut down the economy, caused suppressed supply, increased demand, completely screwed up the economy, caused all this inflation, gets kicked out, and then for 4 years nobody remembers any of that, and he goes, look at how bad he's doing. This is horrible. This is terrible.
But
he's so bad. You remember how great it was when I was in charge?
His name was try to put the name on his check, right?
Yeah.
Then they did the thing with the child tax credit, and everyone was surprised. What happened to my tax return?
Google it. Donald Trump on the third stimulus in the negotiations was mad at Nancy Pelosi because she wouldn't make the stimulus bill bigger. You can Google this. They fought over it, and he was like, "You've got to give these people more money." Like, he is the cause of the inflation, and he's completely gotten away with it. And if you think he's the answer, you are fooling yourself. I'm not saying Joe Biden has done anything to help inflation. He hasn't.
No,
They're still printing
made it
money.
Worse too. He's made it much worse.
But
so
he's not the reason we have $4 egg. It's just it makes me laugh because it is the greatest. It is the greatest bait and switch con in American political life, and it's just so funny that he's going to win because people go, yeah. Remember how good it was when I was in charge, baby? You want more of that?
You're a little scary good at that.
He's going to have 4 more years to get
so
it better,
good.
too.
So
good. I like the
accordion hands. Accordion hands. I don't know, man. At least the Republic's going to... Because in 2030, starting then, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are all going to run out of money. It's... I don't know. Let's end on some hopeful notes here and see if you can sum up some optimism, because you are running for office, which means you have to promise the people watching something.
All right, my book.
So you've got to tell people how to fix it. What is the alternative?
My book, you can buy it on Amazon. I've got all the solutions are already there, and we can fix it anytime we want. And it's unfortunate that we've been sold this idea of incrementalism that, it took us a long time to get here, it'll take a long time to fix it. It can't, for several reasons. That's not how humans work. Things happen fast in politics or they go bad. And in fact, bad goes fast too. It's like one of those things like it takes a long time, then all of a sudden it blows up. Or you think that you have to build organizations and you have to do this. We have the power of peaceful revolution. That's the whole point of elections. It's not to hire politicians, it's to fire them. Because you've got every country in the world has got politicians, and a lot of them don't have elections.
Yeah.
And that's where, if we just get it in our head that we need to vote the way we talk, because I haven't talked to anybody yet, and I've talked to a lot of people so far, that in this election cycle, I've talked to an awful lot of people who agree with everything I have to say.
You're supposed to say, many people are agreeing with me.
Many people, more people than it's super agreement. It's like
it's unbelievable.
Never before have so many people agreed with anybody as they agree.
Robert E. Lee looked at Gettysburg and said, "Wow."
Okay, I'm not going to try to do Trump, but the idea
you haven't seen the Gettysburg thing. Robert E. Lee looked at it, he said, "Wow."
Oh man, the idea right now that we have Trump versus Biden. How much worse does it have to get? And when
remember when we said that about Bush versus Gore?
Oh, and this is so much worse, so much worse. And they're both. And nothing. Every day I have less and less against old people, but the idea that these guys at their age. And given the fact that these are the most divisive, terrible candidates we've ever had, even Woodrow Wilson, who a lot of my friends and people, we would have thought this is as bad as you can get. He was racist, he was a globalist, he was an authoritarian, all kinds of bad stuff about him. But this is worse. What we have now is worse, and the setup is worse, where, there was a time when America could afford to screw up a lot more because we had a lot more money. We had, not only just the global currency standard, but we had, like after World War II, we had 3/4 of the global monetary gold.
Yeah.
And, the fact that we frittered away all of that.
You also had hegemony, where you were in charge of everything after the USSR. Now China and Russia, and I don't think it's an accident that you've got Iran and Russia in active military campaigns where they know we're going to and China will invade Taiwan because it is in their national interest to bleed us of revenue.
Like we tried to do to Russia.
Exactly.
And so the fact that we have been fighting the world and the world is now fighting back, the fact that we have the worst political scenario we've ever had. Is this actually coming towards me? Or
I think so, yeah. No, it's okay.
But if I can just, one note of positivity, it never takes a majority to change everything.
Yeah.
Ever. It's always a minority. It's always the passionate few.
Buddy, you can do it.
It's always the passionate few who determine the course of history. And so if we especially in a three-way race, you don't need 51% to win.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at the math of a three-way race, and if we're looking up at the setup of the worst scenario ever as far as the two-party system goes, where everybody knows it's a mess, I think now is the best time we have ever had for people to just say, you know what? I don't like this. It's not working. It's obviously not working. Why don't we just try this thing that we have never done before and fire the bums?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. What do you got left to lose?
What have you got to lose? That was literally 2004 going to black people and saying, what have you got to lose? I don't know, a lot. Yeah. Andy, what are you running for? What's your website? Where can people find the book?
Yeah, I'm running for U.S. Senate in Indiana. My book is called Relighting the Torch. It's got Lady Liberty on the cover. In fact, I've got some here to sell if you guys want to buy my book.
I already bought it.
Oh, yeah, you already bought it. And horningforsenate.com is my website. But it's pretty easy to find my podcast, too. I've started a little podcast. It's a Constitution series. And I'm trying to make them relatively short, like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes at most. I've got First, Second Amendment. I've got some basic things.
It's on Rumble, or is it in the podcast directories?
It's on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, So it should be pretty easy to find. Facebook.
All right, Andy, thanks so much for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Any final thoughts Harry?
I will say this. I do like the idea of 15-minute city and getting back to it. I will say that Indianapolis has done a piss poor job of, in fact, trying to get it started. And most cities do it. They want to do the fun things first, and they mess up all the things that keep people safe. Yes, putting no turn on red, keep people safe, but not raising the crosswalks off so people walking on the sidewalk don't come down to the street. The street comes up to them, so people turn right. They can't gun it because it's a gigantic speed bump at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. And then also getting smarter, better traffic signs. That's it. But that stuff costs money. It's not cool. You can't do things for it. But yeah.
The biggest barrier to better cities is a lot of zoning laws, a lot of land use laws. Yep. It is the lack of available land to build on because of environmental regulations, of this or that, or it can't get cleared, or you didn't get the right permits, or that is the biggest barrier a lot of times
to
new.
Too complicated.
If we had more time, we'd talk about the whole corporate law business too, because what we've done with corporations versus humans is really not. That's killing us.
So does that mean you'll come back?
I'd be happy to come back.
Yeah, please. We'd love to have you back. And please go to
Horning for Senate.
FOR?
FOR.
Okay. HorningForSenate.com.
Yep.
All right. And he's not giving that up anytime soon, okay? All right. I like teasing you that you run a lot because everybody does. But
I'm also a lot older than I ever was before.
I love that you're running. I love that you're going to be as a libertarian, our voice out there again. And just appreciate your 20 years of friendship at this point.
20 years.
20 years. Yeah. Yes. Felt like 50.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for watching us here on We Are Libertarians and the Chris Spangle Show. We really do appreciate it. And thanks for watching. If you got something out of this, please share it. Hit the share button. That really helps us, or retweet, re-X, I don't know what you call it. Thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.